Hello and howdy. So Scarlet and Violet base set has come out just a couple of weeks ago, and the Pokemon trading card game Live has given everyone a good number of starting decks and stuff for everyone to go ahead and mess around with some of these new popular cards that have come out, and they've given some players some relevant cards from the Sword and Shield block. Now, Sword and Shield base set has rotated out, so you're going to have to keep that in mind if you're transitioning over from last year's decks. Now, if you did play during last year and had a trading card game Live account, you might have a couple more cards than someone who just joined in off of the Scarlet and Violet block. So I'm going to keep that in mind with everyone being new. Maybe people just got Scarlet and Violet and they may have had an interest in the card games. They may have seen maybe some of these really shiny looking EX cards that people have been pulling. So I'm here to go ahead and show you how you're going to take these starting decks that they give you and fine tune them more towards what people will be playing in tournaments. And one of the most popular and best performing decks that we're going to go ahead and get into is Lost Box. And right off the bat, the Giratina V-Star deck that they give you actually has pretty much all the components you would need in order to get going. Now, you could play just straight Giratina V-Star that they give you, and it would do all right. However, I'm going to say probably not. Let's just go ahead and build a more common one prizer variation of it. We're not going to be playing any Vs. We're only playing one Radiant. That's our one rule box. So I'll go ahead and just kind of break down the deck to show you all how it's going to be kind of functioning and rolling down. This deck's a little weird and not conventional if you've played the card game in the past. And the biggest backbone of this deck is actually going to be Comfey. It has the ability flower selecting. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may look up at the top two cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand, and the other into the Lost Zone. So it's really similar to a card called Acrobike, if any of y'all remember that or have seen that around. Acrobike, put it in your discard pile. This card puts it in the Lost Zone. Now, the Lost Zone is kind of a secondary discard pile that when those cards enter the Lost Zone, they are entirely unplayable anymore. You can't get them out of there. They're just gone, lost forever, basically. Now, this mechanic has shown up a few times throughout the game's history, and you might be thinking, well, why would I want to be putting cards in the Lost Zone? That sounds really harsh. You can never get them back. You can't, use a rescue carrier to get Pokemon out of there, and your energy, you can't, energy recycle them back anymore. Well, the biggest reason why we're going to be putting stuff in the Lost Zone is because we have cards like Cramorant, who say if you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone, you actually don't need any energy to attack, and it does 110 damage, which is pretty good actually. For 0 energy attacking for 110, that is absolutely incredible. The other partner we have is Sableye. Sableye has the attack Lost Mine. If you have 10 or more cards in your Lost Zone, you can put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. So that's effective of 120 damage that you can put anywhere. And you can kind of fine tune it to be 60-60. So there's a lot of evolving basic Pokemon that have 60 HP. We can just look over here at Apom right here, has 60. And a really popular evolution deck right now is Gardevoir, and Ralts has 70 HP, so it means you can't necessarily knock out 2 in a row, but you can definitely start setting up massive knockouts with Sableye. You can start kind of controlling the pace of the match, and I don't believe Sableye's damage is blockable by any sort. I don't think Terrasalized Pokemon have the immunity to this. I could be wrong, but in order to kind of fix some of the numbers, we're only doing 120. We do have Radiant Greninja, which is an excellent partner in this deck. It's a basic Pokemon with 130 HP, and for 2 water and a colorless, you get to discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and it will do 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So combining that with Sableye, you're going to start doing a lot of damage across your opponent's board. and they can't really comeback you because you're not necessarily playing any 2 prize Pokemon. So they're always going to have to be knocking you out for 1 prize, while you could be potentially setting up KOs on multiple 2 prize Pokemon, where you could take effectively 4 or even more if you're attacking a VMAX. And we do have a lot of support in this deck. Now, I did mention that Comfey, you do have to be inactive for its ability to work, and this isn't limited to 1 Comfey. For how many Comfey you have out on your bench, you can use their ability each turn. So we're going to be playing a lot of switch cards and Escape Rope to go ahead and try to get back and forth out of the active to keep using its ability, and potentially try to get Cramorant going for 110 damage on your first attacking turn, which is a lot easier than it actually seems. We have a whole lot of search cards in order to get our Comfeys out as fast as we can. We got Battle VIP Pass. If this is your first turn, you get to go ahead and look for 2 basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. So that's like using 2 Nest Balls for the price of 1. The only downside is that after it's your first turn, the card kind of becomes a little useless, but that's okay. We do play Cram-o-matic. This is typically used in VMAX decks, but I figured since we'd have a lot of dead weight with Nest Ball and Battle VIP Pass, we might as well go ahead and use Cram-o-matic, because it will let you discard a item card from your hand. Well, yeah, it's an item card. It has to be an item, so it won't be a tool, but we're not playing any tools in this deck, so you don't have to worry about it. So any of your switches or escape ropes, balls, or even Pokégears, we can go ahead and sacrifice those up and see if we can go ahead and search our deck for any card. That could really come in handy in a clutch scenario. We also have the card Beach Court. Beach Court lowers your retreat cost by 1 for all of your basic Pokemon in play, and we just so happen to be only playing basic Pokemon with about 1 retreat cost. Comfey only has a retreat cost of 1, Sableye has a retreat cost of 1, Manaphy also has a retreat cost of 1, and so on and so on and so on. The only one here that we don't have that has a retreat cost higher than 1 is Snorlax. And Snorlax is basically here just to sit there and be fat. It also does 180 damage for 3 energy. 3 energy might be a little expensive, and it doesn't have the same ability as Cramorant if you have cards in the Lost Zone that it attacks for free. However, we're playing a very key card in Mirage Gate. If you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone, so generally probably by your second turn, you get to search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So we are playing a good variety of energy to always make sure that we're going to have those 2 types and energy in our deck. Play a total of 13. We played a majority of Water and Psychic because Sableye and Greninja are typically going to be our main combo that we're going to want to be using. And with that combination, even though we have an attack for 3 energy, accelerating 2 from your deck and then attaching 1 from your hand, that's 180 right then and there. And we're always going to be making sure that we're pivoting in and out of the active with our max copies of Switch and Escape Ropes, and just about a max copies of Beach Court. I believe they only gave you 3 to start out with Beach Court, but I really don't see it wanting to play more than that. And you might be saying, well, even if I had 4 Comfey and I was able to use their ability 4 times that turn, that's only 4 cards in the Lost Zone. Might be a little hard to get Cramorant's ability going on your first attacking turn. However, we have a very handy supporter that they thankfully gave you 4 of. I was really glad that they did that, because if they did any less, you're going to have to exchange some credits. This is a must 4 of in any Lost Zone deck. And it lets you look at the top 5 cards, put 3 of them into your hand, and put the others in the Lost Zone. So that's actually really useful. That's an extra 2 cards in the Lost Zone just for playing your supporter. So combining that with 4 of your Comfeys plus the 2 other, that's going to be almost right at 7. So you probably can't go ahead and accelerate energy your first turn unless you had some really weird shenanigans. It's not as possible anymore, Before rotation, we had like Scoop Up Net and stuff like that. It would probably be a little more possible because Comfey, you could use it up to like, you know, way more than 4 times because of that. But we won't be getting into that. That'd be some more expanded shenanigans. So I'm sure you could probably get the picture that, alright, our goal is to go ahead and just get as much junk and stuff we're not using into the Lost Zone. It could be just your Battle VIP passes that you're not using anymore. Maybe some energies. Just be careful. You don't want to run out of each energy type for your attackers. Maybe if you're in a matchup where lightning Pokemon like Zeraora aren't going to be doing a whole lot. Zeraora is in here because it has a free retreat cost. So even if you start out with it, you can get out in the active and go to a Comfey. It does 30 damage for 1 lightning energy, which ain't too half bad. And if it's an evolution Pokemon, it does 60 damage. So it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but let's say you're versus a water deck, and it would be doing double damage. So you could, if it's a basic Pokemon, it's 60 on there, and 60 damage is all right. You know, combine it with Sableye, then you're doing 180. You know, that would actually knock out Lunatone, which is a really popular bee Pokemon. See, it has a water weakness, and we can try to gimp, you know, people really early with Escape Rope. Maybe they only have a few Pokemon, and they go ahead and bench their Lunatone, and they only have one other Pokemon in the active. Then we can go ahead and play Escape Rope, and it kind of functions like a boss's orders. Now, I didn't play any boss's orders in this deck, and you might really want to try to fit them in there. I just couldn't really work it in. I just didn't really know where to put it in at. Maybe you could lower the amount of nest balls and just rely on Battle VIP Pass. Maybe you could dunk the Cramorants if you don't like them and just replace them with like bosses or Serena. We'll touch on Serena here in a little bit because I think it's a card that synergizes really well in a few other decks. Just want to go ahead and touch up on our last attacker here. We have Landorus. Now, I believe you don't get this starting the game, and it is a holo, so it might be a little expensive on the credits, but I think this card actually synergizes really well with a single prizer Lost Box deck. And that's because it does have a bit of an expensive attack with 2 fighting energy and colors for 120 damage, but there are a lot of relevant Pokemon that are weak to fighting. Dark type decks and lightning type decks. You're going to see those a lot. Oh, and we have a really good example right here in Arceus. That's weak to fighting too. So I'm really surprised I don't see Landorus in a lot of Lost Box decks. Maybe they thought it was too awkward to work in the fighting type energy. But I really like Landorus. 1 retreat cost, has a strafe attack for 20 damage, and it gets to pivot around. So not only is its retreat cost low, it has an attack that helps pivot, and it has an attack for 120, which will knock out any bee Pokemon that is weak to fighting. And its attack has the added benefit that you can move all the energy to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. So it's not as big as a commitment as you might originally think. So Snorlax can take any energy, another 180. Let's say you have 2 fighting and a water on it. You can go ahead and move some of the energy maybe for retreat cost if you don't have a beach court in play. And if you have the water on there, that's another water on Radiant Greninja. So I really like this card in this deck. And it's another energy type that we can go ahead and accelerate. I feel like it's going to put a little more than Zeraora, but I guess it really does just kind of depend on the matchup. The whole Lost Box scenario is just trying to be as prepared for each matchup that you'd want. It is a bit of a harder deck to play. I wouldn't really recommend beginners play it, but I figured it was probably the most important to talk about because Lost Box generally is considered the best deck in the format. So, and it's really because of this little guy right here. So that's enough rambling on about Lost Box. Feel free to go ahead and take this list and use it if you want. I'll make sure to go ahead and put it in the description if you feel like playing with this one, or if you want to go ahead and make your own adjustments to it, that's totally fine too. Just play around and see what you like. So the other deck I really wanted to go ahead and showcase was Lunarock, as I call it. It themes Lunatone and Solrock in it. Now, the starting one that they give you plays Mewtwo V and Mewtwo V-Star. I can definitely see the combo with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at Mewtwo here. I totally misspelled that, my bad. Mewtwo. So we got Mewtwo V here. Not really remarkable. It looks really cool. It's just that 160 for 3 energy. That's okay on a 2-prizer. My real head-scratching problem is why Mewtwo V is in here is that Solrock only attaches energies from your discard pile to your Lunatone. So you would have to play like energy switchers or just manually attach energy. The Mewtwo V-Star, it only needs 2 energy, and you can discard up to 3 psychic energy from your Pokemon. So that can kind of synergize with the Solrocks playing on to your Lunatones, and then you can discard them to go ahead and swing with Mewtwo V-Star. If you wanted to go ahead and play the deck like that, by all means go ahead. I've heard it's pretty good, but I wanted to go ahead and stick with a single prize focus deck because I think it's a little harder for your opponent to kind of punish you for things. A single prize Lunatone and Solrock, I have struggled against beating this deck in like almost every single deck I've played. So I want to go ahead and give that to players to show you how you would kind of want to run that, so you guys can start dunking on people who have their 2 and 3 prizers. So I've already kind of mentioned what Solrock does. You're going to need Psychic Energy in your discard pile for this ability to work, and you can go ahead and accelerate the Psychic Energy from your discard pile to any of your Lunatones per your Solrock. Now it could be on the bench or it could be on the active slot. And Lunatone here has an attack, Moon Kinesis. It does 30 damage plus 30 more for each psychic energy you have attached to that Pokemon. So you can really start crunking numbers depending on how many psychic energy you have in the discard pile. You could theoretically knock out anything in one hit. It's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to, just be trying to knock out a 2-prizer in one go if you can. But you're a single prizer deck, so even if you're 2-hitting KOing like Vs and V-Stars, you're still going to probably be ahead of the matchup. They're going to have to try really hard in order to keep up with you. Radiant Greninja features up here again. I totally forgot to talk about his ability. Not only is his attack really good in Lost Box, but his ability here is really good, especially in a Lunatone deck. Its ability, Concealed Cards, says you must discard an energy from your hand in order to use this ability. Then you get to draw 2 cards. So ideally, you're going to want to try to discard your Psychic Energy. That puts it in your discard pile, and you get the added bonus of going ahead and draw 2 cards. In order to help us out with just getting cards in our hand and going around, we got Scovit and Bid Barrel. I've seen someone play this combo before. We just have a thin line, and that's not so bad of a problem because we have Hisuian Heavy Ball, which lets us look at our prize cards and take a basic Pokemon out of there. So if we're missing our Bidoof for our Scovit, that's totally fine. We can go ahead and get them out. And then we also play Rescue Carrier. So even if we like Professor Research them away into our discard pile, we can still go ahead and get the Scovit and Bidoof out of our discard pile, as well as our Lunatones or Solrocks if those ever got in there. Since we're a Psychic deck, we get to go ahead and play a lovely card called Bug Crystal. It lets us look for a Psychic Energy or a basic Psychic Pokemon. So it kind of works like a Nest Ball / energy search for your Psychic type Pokemon, and that's really handy for getting Lunatones out and also just getting Psychic Energy in your hand so you can go ahead and try to discard them. Now, Scovit has a very interesting ability. It makes you shuffle your hand and put it onto the bottom of your deck and then draw 1 card. Now that sounds really weird. That normally probably wouldn't be something you would really want to play. But if you look at Bid Barrel over here, it says once during your turn, you may draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So if you just have a lot of stuff that you don't want to go ahead and Professor away, or you just want to prevent yourself from decking out, you can go ahead and use Scovin that way, and then combo with Bid Barrel, drawing you more cards. We really just kind of want to get this deck rolling as fast out as possible. So we got plenty of search options like Ultra Ball, which makes us discard cards from our hand, potentially energy, and hopefully only energy. And we get to go ahead and look for any Pokemon. So that can be our Radiant Greninjas, or our Bid Barrels, or Scovids, or Lunatones, really anything we need to kind of help us out with consistency. We're playing Beach Court. We don't really have a whole lot of high retreat cost Pokemon. Lunatone, Solrock, Greninja, Bidoof, and Scovit all have a retreat cost of 1. So with that out in the field, it's a free retreat. We also have Pokestop. It makes you discard the top 3 cards of your deck. If you discarded any item cards, you get to put those back into your hand. So if you've kind of mathed it right, that you only have a lot of energy left in your deck and not a whole lot else, you can go ahead and rip that to try to get more psychic energy in your discard pile, because that's what this deck really wants. It wants all our psychic energy into our discard pile as fast as possible. We also play Serena in this deck. I mentioned that when I was talking about the Lost Box deck. This card has a dual purpose, and I absolutely love this card. It says discard up to 3 cards from your hand. You must have at least 1 card in your hand. Don't make the mistake like I've done and had no cards in my hand and play it, and I wasn't able to do anything. And you can discard 3 cards, so that could be free energy. There you go, and then draw 5 more and see what you get off that. Or you could go ahead and use it like a Boss's Orders. It has a secondary effect of switch your opponent's benched Pokemon V with their active. And V Pokemon are still played a lot on the ladder, you know, playing like quick matches or even the rank ladder. You're going to see V Pokemon really commonly. So to kind of have another Boss's Orders in your deck, but with also the added effect of being able to draw cards with the same card, I say going ahead and getting a Serena is really important. You might want to play more. I don't think they give you a Serena just starting out, but it's just a regular, you know, uncommon trainer. So the credit exchange, it's, yeah, I don't even think it's that much. Yeah, it's literally just 100 credits like that. And that's the reverse holo one. So getting that card is pretty cheap. You should have enough credits starting out to even get that too. Let's see, is there anything else we might need to go over? Avery. Now, this card you do get a couple copies of starting out, and it lets you draw 3 cards, and makes your opponent have to discard have to have only 3 Pokemon on their bench. So if they're playing like a Raikou deck and they have a whole bunch of basic Pokemon or Pokemon out on their bench, you're going to have to make them pick 2 of their 5 and discard them. So it kind of puts them in an awkward scenario. And I really like that because we're just going to kind of want to try to control what our opponent's doing. That's why we have escape ropes in here. You might want to play Path to the Peak in this deck too. They don't give you any Path to Peak, so I didn't put it in here. It shuts down the abilities of rule box Pokemon, so that's going to be like Pokemon V, GX, EX, even I'm 95% sure Radiant gets shut down. So be careful if you need to use your Radiant and you're playing Path to the Peak. But Path to the Peak kind of shuts down abilities. You're going to see a lot of 2 prizer Pokemon using their abilities and stuff like that. And then you can kind of combo that in with Judge. Judge makes both of you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4. That's not so punishing with us because we have Scub and Bid Barrel and a whole bunch of Professor's Research in our deck. So you place down a Path to Peak and judge them. They might start beginning a little struggle in order to get out of scenario. And I definitely recommend getting some Judges and Path to Peak just in general because they're a pretty good combo right now. And that's pretty much about it. I would definitely say this is probably the one you want to play first. Lunatone and Solrock. It really just works. Just get your psychic energy out into the discard pile and just start piling it on the Lunatone, and it just kind of goes. So let's go ahead and move on to our next deck we have here. Now this one I would say is probably the most powerful one that you can get really early on. I've been absolutely loving the Miraidon list. And if you look at the battle pass right here, soon as you get to tier 1, you go ahead and get the starter deck for Miraidon. So I think you just kind of get this right when you log in too. At least I'm considering it. It's just tier 1, so like, even if you don't unlock it right away, that's probably like a day of playing, which would be like max 30 minutes maybe, and you get this. So you go ahead and start out and getting 2 Miraidon EXs with a bunch of copies of Level Ball, Energy Surge, Professors, Ultra Balls, Beach Court, Escape Ropes. So that really starts getting you a whole lot. There is a 4/4 of the Flaffy engine. Now, some people really like Flaffy. It says once during your turn, you may attach a lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So it's kind of similar to the Solrock Lunatone whole combo spiel right there, but it's only from your discard pile to your bench Pokemon. I find it a little awkward to go ahead and get a stage 1 out and then it's only a once per turn kind of effect. So on my Miraidon list, we're going to go ahead and say no. I'll show you a different way on how to get everything going. And no, that's tier 0. Oh yeah, you do just get this in for just logging in. Here at tier 2, so maybe by your second day of playing, you should be here. And you get another Miraidon EX, so that brings you up to 3, which I'd say is probably about the optimal. You don't really need 4. 2 is a little too low. 3, I just feel like it's just right. And you get Electric Generator. The Regieleki VMAX deck, starter deck, already came with like 4, so that's just free credits. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and show you what this deck's all about. The star of the show here is Miraidon EX. This card is disgustingly broken. It says, once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 basic lightning Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So what you could do is search out another Miraidon and another Pokemon, and then use that Miraidon to search out another Miraidon or a different Pokemon, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, once you've gotten one Miraidon out, your entire bench is full from the start of the game. Now, they can Path of the PQ to shut down your ability, and that's why we're going to go ahead and play a Lost Zone card in Lost Vacuum. You have to put 1 card into the Lost Zone, but you get to go ahead and discard a tool or a stadium in play. So that kind of lets you get out if you really just need to go ahead and get your best basic Pokemon out. You don't really use abilities a whole lot. Regieleki VMAX has its ability here, but I think generally, if you're in the scenario that you're running into a lot of Path of the Peaks, maybe go ahead and increase the amount of Lost Vacuum you play in your deck, just to go ahead and kind of get around that. Let's go ahead and get into some of the other starters of the show, which is, well, I guess we already mentioned Regieleki. Now, Regieleki V, it has a retreat cost of 1, which is bad, and its attacks do damage, I guess. Regieleki V is not very good, but Regieleki V VMAX is a massive improvement. It has the ability Transistor. Your basic Pokemon attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it basically acts like a choice belt for your basic electric type Pokemon. And we just so happen to be playing a lot of basic electric type Pokemon. Convenient, I know. The downside is it doesn't power up itself. It would be kind of cool if it did, then it would just be kind of its own thing, spiraling out of control. So I kind of see why they didn't let it just do all lightning Pokemon. It already does 220, which is a pretty respectable number. That knocks out Miraidon and other, 2 prize Pokemon. That knocks out Arceus, right there. It will knock out Darkrai V, knock out Mew V. You can see all the V Pokemon you'd be knocking out for 220. So, Regieleki VMAX not only has free retreat, a great ability, and a great attack that combos in with other Pokemon like Raikou. Now, to start out, you only get 1 Raikou, and I think you get like a second kind of farther down in the Battle Pass. I can go double check that real quick. Let's see. Let me close out the view on that. Yeah, I believe you get another Raikou V eventually. Yeah. Here at Tier 4, you get another Raikou V. Now, getting to Tier 2, I'd say is a little closer to starting. Tier 4, you know, that might be a little down the road if you're just starting out. Shouldn't be too hard to obtain, but I would definitely suggest working in a Raikou V as soon as you can, because what Raikou V does is actually really, really cool. It has the ability Fleet-Footed. If this Pokemon is in the active spot, you get to draw a card. Kind of like Comfey, but without having the downside of needing to put something in the Lost Zone, and this deck doesn't really use Lost Zone powers. It also has the attack called Lightning Rondo. It does 20 damage plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent. So having this card on the field really benefits you because you're playing Miraidon, your bench is always going to be full. Now your opponent might want to try to limit your damage output of Lightning Rondo by playing less cards. And that's good for us. We want them to have less Pokemon on their bench because it's easier to pick and choose what is most important to their strategy. So I heavily recommend increasing the Raikou count to 2. I have it as a one-off in this deck right here, and that's not so bad starting out because you can play things like Hisuian Level Ball, or Heavy Ball, my bad. Hisuian Level Ball would be kind of cool. I wonder what that card would do. And this lets you look for a basic Pokemon out of your prize cards and go ahead and put it into your hand. So even if your Raikou V is prized, so long as you get your Heavy Ball out, it's not a problem. You're going to have that other really good V attacker. We do have some other support mons here. Zeraora has free retreat, really good for pivoting around. And, well, we've already talked about this card, but the added bonus in this one is that Regieleki V Max will make it do even more damage than it did before. So it's a pretty good, nice one prize attacker beat stick in this deck. I'm not too much of a fan of it in this deck, but I just kind of put it here because we didn't have another Raikou. Something I really do kind of like is Regieleki one prizer. It kind of fits the whole Regieleki Miraidon, you know, big electric attacks kind of theme. And it has the attack Terra Spark, which does 120 damage, which could be 150 damage with just one Regieleki VMAX in play. And I forgot to mention, they do stack. They do stack. So you can actually have 2 out, and it would do even more. And then discard all electric energy from this Pokemon, and then it does 40 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So that can really help tweak numbers. So if you're like, oh man, I'm like just like 4 damage short of knocking out a VMAX Pokemon in one hit, well, Regieleki can be there in order to help you out. But you might be saying, well, 3 energy is really kind of hard to get, and you have to discard all of it? How are we supposed to go ahead and get those all out that fast? Well, the key component to this deck is Electric Generator. It says look at the top 5 cards of your deck and attach 2 basic lightning energy cards you find there to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. And it has to be your bench Pokemon, so that's kind of why we're playing really low retreat and free retreat Pokemon, so we can try to get what we need in and out of the active as efficiently as we can. We do play Escape Ropes. You can play Switch or Escape Ropes, or even more of them if you really wanted to. But like 2 Escape Ropes is fun enough. It does Disruption and lets you switch out. We also play Energy Recycler, so we can go ahead, and in case we've just been burning through all our electric energy with Professor's Research, go ahead and shuffle them back into our deck, and that just increases our odds of Electric Generator hitting its 2. You ideally want to try to get 2 off the top 5. That's a little hard unless you're playing like 30 energy in your deck, which I don't recommend. I did 15, so that's 1/4 of our deck is lightning energy. So yeah, we really just want to make sure we don't whiff energy ever. And to kind of keep energy controlled on our board, to try not to lose them as much as we have XP share. If your Pokemon was knocked out, you get to go ahead and take a basic energy and move it to the Pokemon that has the XP shared on. So even if your opponent is knocking out something you put 3 energy on, well, you know, that's still spread energy around your board, so they don't really put them in the most positive situation for even knocking you out. And we have a really handy dandy card here for Arven. it lets you look for a Pokemon tool card like XP Share, and a item card like Nest Ball, or the really key card, Electric Generator. So Arvin here actually does put a lot of work into this deck. I really like him in here. You could maybe play like 3. I felt like 2 was just fine. Honestly, just Professor's research just it really does. It just kind of gets you everything you need most of the time. We have some Pokégears in order to help us make sure we got your supporters. And we have a card here in Clara. She lets us look for, well, put 2 Pokemon from our discard pile back into our hand, or 2 basic energy cards back into our hand. Typically, you want to try to do the Pokemon one because, well, if your Regieleki VMAX goes down, that's 2 Pokemon you just lost, and that could stifle our damage output. And to increase our damage output a little more, I put Vitality Bands in here. I generally don't consider Vitality Band to be that good of a card, because it is only 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So I would suggest switching out this card for Choice Belt. It lets you do more to your opponent's V Pokemon. Does 30 more. This can really help you take out some early knockouts with pretty much any of your Pokemon. But for now, since this is just a starter's guide list, I think Vitality Band will do just fine enough for now. Definitely switch it out for Choice Belts when you got enough credit to get it. Beach Court's here again, because we play a lot of just 1 retreat cost Pokemon. And Boss's Orders here just for gusting and taking out knockouts we really want. So yeah, that's pretty much how this deck rolls. It honestly just works. Miraidon is just such a safe and consistent card that you really don't have to worry. I heavily recommend that players invest into Miraidon Raikou decks and just kind of steamroll from there. It just has really good matchups against pretty much anything right now. It hits Lugia V-Star really well. It can gimp Gardevoir decks pretty well. And there's one other card that you really need to suggest getting into, and I have this in my other list. I have a more fine-tuned Miraidon EX list right here, so we can go ahead and kind of see that one, where you might want to go ahead and get your list towards. So we're playing 3 Raikous. I bought 1 with credits, and we're playing a card that you probably haven't seen before, and Magnezone V-Star. Now, Magnezone V-Star, I recommend getting this card as soon as you can. You take the baby Regieleki and you just pump it with steroids, and this thing just does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's really similar to Radiant Greninja, but it's now electric themed. This really gimps a lot of stuff. This can put your opponent into a lot of checkmate positions. Yeah, Magnezone V-Star is really good. Another card you might want to keep your eyes out on is Forest Steel Stone. It is a trainer card that you can attach to one of your V Pokemon. It has to be specifically V Pokemon. So it could be VMAX or just regular V. You can't put it on EX Pokemon. It won't work. And it has a star power that lets you search for any card and put it into your hand. So pretty strong. But make sure that you don't use Forest Steel Stone and then try to go use Magnezone V-Star's attack. That is a recipe for disaster and looking like a total goof. So yeah, I would definitely say try to get your list closer to this. I'll go ahead and post both of them in the description. I'll make sure to parenthesize that one's the starter and one's the one where you should try to get your deck towards with the credits you're getting and the matches you're winning. So yeah, we pretty much went over everything relevant. I would say that you should probably be playing the 3 favorite one, Miraidon EX, Lost Box. I called mine Lost Rainbow because we played 4 different types of energy, and Lunarock. Another one that we should probably touch up on is Origin Form Palkia. This deck is kind of fallen off, mainly because Miraidon is really there. But if you're not playing against Miraidon, this deck's really strong. I'd definitely suggest going ahead and playing around with this. You're going to need more copies of Palkia V and Palkia V-Star. And I would just say, just cut the base, just cut the single prizers, just focus in on Palkia just doing as much damage as possible. So yeah, keep your eyes out on this deck. I will probably make a video about Palkia. Maybe I'll figure out some way in how we can beat Miraidon faster than they can dunk us. It's a tough matchup, but we'll see what comes in the future. Well, thanks for going ahead and sticking around for me for this long. If you have any questions, I'll go ahead and try to answer them in the comments, maybe give you some ideas on what you need to be doing, how to get through the Battle Pass a little faster, and what decks you should try to be like focusing on, you know, what, pretty much anything, honestly. Just ask me anything, I'll answer it. Well, hope you had fun listening to me ramble about random fucking cards for way too long. Toodles.